What's up, guys? It's MB Boxing, and today I'm going to be predicting the outcome of Robert Helenius versus Adam Kownacki 2, and this is going to be a 12-rounder in the heavyweight division, and this fight is going to be Saturday, October 9th, from the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada, and this fight is going to be broadcasted on ESPN Plus and Fox Sports Pay-Per-View, and to get into both fighters' resumes, Robert Helenius, fighting out of Finland, holds a record of 30 wins, 3 defeats with 19 wins coming by way of knockout. He's currently not ranked by BoxRec in the heavyweight division, and to first of all list all of his defeats, he has a knockout loss to Johan Duhaupas, a unanimous decision defeat to Dillian White, and a knockout loss to Gerald Washington. And now to list some of his best victories, he has a knockout win over Lemon Brewster, a knockout win over Samuel Peter, a knockout win over Sergey Lykovich, a split decision win over Derek Chisora, a knockout win over Erkan Tepper, and as most of you guys know, he's coming off that upset of the year 4th-round knockout victory over Adam Kownacki in their first fight. And now to get into his opponent's resume, Adam Kownacki, fighting out of Poland, holds a record of 20 wins, 1 defeat with 15 wins coming by way of knockout. He's currently not ranked as well by BoxRec in the heavyweight division, and to first of all list his lone defeat. And as most of you guys know, as I mentioned before, he has that 4th-round knockout loss to Robert Helenius in their first fight. And now to list some of Kownacki's best victories, he has a knockout win over Artur Spilka, a knockout win over Ago Kaladzidi, a unanimous decision victory over Charles Martin, a knockout win over Gerald Washington, and a unanimous decision victory over Chris Arreola. In my opinion, this fight is going to be very, very similar to their first fight, and I'm talking about the outcome. I think Robert Helenius is going to knock out Adam Kownacki again. From what I've seen, Kownacki, he has some decent sparring. He was training with, I believe, Arslanbek Makhmudov, very similar in height to Helenius and stature when it comes to sort of their body type and maybe even power. Helenius is a very, very powerful fighter, and I think that was great sparring for him, but I wonder how Kownacki is going to come into this fight, and if he's been training to sort of be more patient. And I did hear his trainer say that in a recent interview, that he's going to be more patient as opposed to just getting the knockout like he did in the first fight, or trying to get the knockout, I should say, where he was in front of his home, or sort of given hometown, because obviously he was born in Poland, but he's based in Brooklyn, and it was at the Barclays Center. All the Polish fans were there cheering his name, and it was a shocker when he got stopped, and he was really trying to go for that knockout. He's usually a pressure fighter in every single one of his fights. We've seen that, and I just think it will be very, very tough for him to adapt to a different style that leads to him not being as vigorous and as pressuring his opponents, because if he doesn't do that, then I think Helenius will just pick him apart from the outside or at mid-range, because Helenius does have that big height and reach advantage. I believe Kownacki's like 6'3", Helenius is like 6'6", 6'7", 6'6.5", somewhere around there. And Helenius, in their first fight, it was either like 29-28 or 30-27 in favor of Kownacki. Kownacki was winning, but I can't see this being very similar. Kownacki taking some rounds and being ahead on the scorecards before Helenius does catch him and knock him out like he did in their first fight, as I mentioned before. Helenius, he came in at, I believe, 246 pounds in their first fight. He weighed in at 238. This might help him, though, adding a bit more pop to his punches, being the heavier man. Maybe he'll be able to put his own weight on Kownacki if he comes forward, but I would assume that he'll be like in the first fight and just try and counter Kownacki, which ultimately led to him getting that knockout victory and dropping him first, which was actually counted as a slip. But with Kownacki, he did come in at I believe like 258 for this fight, and in their first fight he weighed in at 265 pounds, so he did slim down a bit, and I definitely see that. His body type for this fight reminds me of a lot when he fought Artur Spilka, and he was a lot faster, a lot more accurate, and that really allowed for him to just sort of dominate in that aspect. But who knows? Maybe it might not help him here, considering he's been at around like 260, 265, or I shouldn't say 260, 265, 267 for his past couple fights. And he looks very sunken in from what I saw at the weigh-in, and that could lead to him being more susceptible to getting knocked out. It looks like he did train very, very hard to lose a lot of weight, but who knows? That could lead to him being more susceptible to concussions and even getting knocked out, as I mentioned before. And I think that's what's going to happen again. Helenius looks rejuvenated. He looks like he's very strong. Kownacki, as I mentioned before, looks pretty sunken in, but yeah, he did come in better shape than in the last fight. So how I see this fight going, I see Kownacki once again coming forward. I can't really see him adapting too much to a new style. I mean, he might fight a bit more where Helenius is the one coming forward, but I just can't see that working for him. And if he does do that, as I mentioned before, he'll get absolutely destroyed. So I see Kownacki being a little bit more tentative instead of maybe for 3 minutes of the round just going forward and just trying to brawl with Helenius. Maybe he, for a minute and a half, comes forward, and then in the last 30 seconds of the round, he bursts and sort of takes that round, and he could definitely do that. And as I mentioned before, I will presume that Kownacki will be ahead leading up to the stoppage, and I think Helenius once again will just catch Kownacki. And I think since Kownacki has taken so much punishment in his career, I think his chin is just totally gone. And I think it's like Anthony Joshua after he really got damaged against Andy Ruiz in their first fight. His chin has not recovered since. I mean, we saw that in the Usyk fight. He was getting wobbled every time he got hit, and who knows, that could happen here. And as I mentioned before, I see Helenius getting the stoppage, and when will that stoppage happen? I could see it being anywhere from mid to the start of the later rounds, like anywhere from rounds 4 to round 8, like a mid to late stoppage, somewhere around there. Obviously, their first fight ended in a 4th round stoppage, and I mean, that could happen again, as I mentioned before, from rounds 4 to 8. But, yeah, I mean, if this fight goes really, really late, and if it goes the distance, I mean, I think Kownacki would win if it does go the distance, because he did have an advantage in their first fight when it came to the judges' scorecards. But here, I once again, as I mentioned before many times, see Kownacki getting stopped, maybe even dropped like he did in the first fight, just with one shot. Then he just won't recover and ultimately gets stopped standing, like in the first fight. So overall, I believe that Robert Helenius will once again defeat Adam Kownacki by knockout, and the stoppage this time will happen from rounds 4 to rounds 8. And yeah, that's really it. I'm MB Boxing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.